Hi, I'm Dr. Lisa Dunne, professor and chair of the Department of Communication here at San Diego Christian College. And I'm very excited to be talking with you today about this important topic, living holistically. When I was an undergrad student in Miami, I didn't know how to balance my life. I didn't know how to take care of myself. I didn't grow up in a Christian home, and so I didn't have a sense of value or worth. Everything I did was to prove myself, to try to create this image of perfectionism. I didn't know how to balance. I was constantly burning the candle at both ends. And by the summer of my sophomore year, I spent an entire summer in an eating disorder clinic as my life was spiraling out of control. And I had to learn some really important habits to kind of keep me on track and to keep me in balance. And so now that I've made it through 5 college degrees, I have a wonderful family I've been blessed with, and I have a 20-year career in education. I want to share some of those secrets of success with you. Today we'll look at 3 areas of self-care that will help you fulfill your academic goals: physical, socio-emotional, and mental or spiritual. First, let's talk about physical care. Physical care includes rest, diet, exercise. It's unfortunately not an area where Americans are doing very well today. The Center for Disease Control says that only 1 in 5 Americans meets the guidelines for physical fitness right now. And due to our sedentary lifestyle and our poor diet, a term that's now known as the SAD, the Standard American Diet, we now lead the developed world in preventable disease. Congratulations, America, right? Well, for me, I had to learn to balance all of these areas. Juliet Shore, who wrote the book The Overworked American, said in her studies that she compared Americans, who have on average 10 days off per year, and European countries who have on average 6 weeks off per year. And what she found is we were producing the same amount. Get that? We're working 6 times harder. I'll do the math there. We're working harder, and they're working less hours, and we're still producing the same amount. Overworked and unproductive. When God created the world, he modeled rest for us. He created the world in 6 days. He rested on the 7th day. And in Exodus 20, he gives us the same mandate. And we need this rest. We need it, this intentional rest. We need it physically and we need it mentally. I'll talk more about that in a moment. Paul said in 1 Corinthians 6:19 that our bodies are the temple of the Holy Spirit, that we were bought with a price. And so we have a responsibility to care for the bodies that God has given us. For me, I had to learn that balance. I was an athlete, so I knew the importance of exercise, but when I graduated, I didn't have that coach pushing me, so I had to learn to be intentional about that. I wasn't taught good nutrition, so I had to learn to cook and eat foods that looked less like they came from a chemical factory and more like they came from God's garden. If you can't pronounce it, you probably shouldn't eat it, right? And I had to stop drinking that gallon of Cuban coffee I was drinking every day in Miami, because that's what you do there. I had to learn to rest, to say no to things, to establish some margin in my life, to learn to be healthy. In addition to physical care, we also need socio-emotional care. Socio-emotional care is our experience, our expression, our management of emotions in the context of relationships. We live in a very anti-reflective culture. That is, there are a lot of distractions constantly bombarding us, a lot of noise all around us. So we have to be really intentional in connecting with other people. Healthy human development requires times of reflection and times of connection, times with others and times alone. Now, if you know your personality type, if you've done your Myers-Briggs and you know if you're an introvert or an extrovert, that can help you to model that correctly in your life. If you're an extrovert, not to oversimplify, but you need more time with other people to recharge. If you're an introvert, you need more time alone to recharge. So knowing that about yourself can really help you. Neuroscientists tell us that our brain is literally wired for community. Dr. Dan Siegel, UCLA, says that we have this genetic hardwiring that shapes us, that calls us literally to community. And many of us are living in this culture, maybe you've heard this term, together but alone. We're around a lot of people, but we don't feel connected to people. Maybe you've read some of the studies on the epidemic of loneliness that our country is facing today. And many of us, we've done that because we've walled ourselves off. We've been hurt by someone else, and so we've created this wall around us. But the bad news about a wall is not only does it protect us from others, but it also keeps others from getting into us. In fact, Proverbs 17:19 says that he who builds a high gate invites destruction. So we want to break down those walls and let other people in. This year, Stanford University coined a term for Gen Zs. That's our traditional college student demographic right now. And they called it duck syndrome. If you think of a duck on the surface of a lake, look at it floating there and it looks like it's placid and cool and got its everything going on. But then you look under the surface of the water and you see its feet frantically paddling to get it to its destination. And Stanford researchers said this is Gen Z. This is a portrait of the current generation, that they want to look like they've got it all together on the surface, but then under the surface of the water, they're just paddling frantically and trying not to let anybody know what's really going on, the anxiety, the depression, the loneliness that they're feeling. And so when we wall ourselves off like that, we don't connect with other people. And we also give the false image that we've got it all together. And that further exacerbates that isolation. You got to know how to feed your soul. You got to know how to take some time out for yourself. I know for me, finding hobbies like musical theater, worship team, being really involved in my church. I'll talk about some more examples like that later. But I didn't know how to connect authentically with others. As I said in my intro, I knew how to perform. I knew how to be a people pleaser, and I knew how to make fans and not friends. And that was before social media. You know, the enemy, he's using the same devices throughout time. He wants to divide us. He wants to isolate us so that he can pick us off. God comes to unite us, to bring us together, right? John 10:10 says that the enemy comes to steal, to kill, and destroy. But Jesus comes that we might have life, and life more abundantly. In the field of interpersonal communication, we see that the way that we establish healthy relationships and really grow our friendships is through a concept called self-disclosure. And self-disclosure is where we reveal something about ourselves, something in good faith, a good faith revelation that we hope will deepen the relationship. And if we're always walling ourselves off and not connecting with others, we will never establish those deep relationships with other human beings. We'll never become vulnerable. We'll never become authentic. Now, to do that, that means we have to take off our earbuds, our headphones, right? We have to put down our phones. We need to create some margin in the classroom, get there early, leave late, and actually interact with other human beings. The final category I want to talk about today is spiritual and mental care. We live in a culture of information overload. There's so much information constantly swirling around us, and we've got to learn to filter this. It's said that an average edition of the New York Times today is more information than a 17th century Englishman would have come across in his entire lifetime. That's a lot of information. Let that sink in. That's information overload. So we've got to filter out the world and allow the word to reign in our lives. Maybe you've heard the term GIGO, garbage in, garbage out. Want to make sure that what we're consuming is more valuable, not trivial, than what we're taking in. We want to make sure we're taking in more of the word and less of the world. Hebrews 4:12 tells us that the word of God is living, it's active, it's sharper than any two-edged sword. It's piercing to the division of soul and spirit, joints and marrow, thoughts and intentions of the heart. And so that word that's profitable for teaching, for correction, for reproof. We want to get that word in our lives. That's going to guide us. That's going to train us. One of the ways we do that is every day, a spiritual time, a devotional time with the Lord. If you've never downloaded the app, the YouVersion app from Craig Rochelle's church, Life Church, phenomenal app. Just download the app. You can plug into devotions every morning. You can set a reminder for yourself. You want to connect to healthy church community. I'm going to talk about that in just a moment, a little bit more. And you want to surround yourself with godly friends. You can reach out to the lost, and we should. That's our mandate. But we also need to be filled by the godly. We're going to become like the company we keep. It's really easy in modern culture to become cynical and negative, but as one of my friends says, the access code to God's heart is gratitude. So we want to really develop that spirit of gratitude and not conform to the patterns of the world. So for our physical health, we need to develop good habits of eating well, of exercising, of resting. We need to learn to cook good meals. Come join our marriage and family class. Dr. Moulton and I teach on that in that class. We need to rest not only weekly, but daily. For our socio-emotional health, we need to build those healthy relationships, be honest with ourselves and others, and really tear down some of those walls, stop that duck syndrome. And then for our spiritual and mental health, we need to watch what we're taking in and what we're putting out. Look at the fruit, look at the root, get plugged into a healthy Bible-believing church. And by that, I don't mean a college ministry. If you only connect to a college ministry, when you graduate, you will not be connected to families or the church in general. You will feel cut off from the vine. So connect to a Bible-believing church and stay planted. You know, maybe you personally have struggled in some of these areas I'm talking about. I want you to know that you are not alone. We have a team of people here to help you, professors, staff, counselors, right here on staff at SDC to help you in your journey. Becoming a Christian college graduate is not just about walking across the stage and getting a piece of paper, a diploma from your college president. It's about becoming a lifelong learner, a culture shaper, a difference maker in this world. It's about developing these habits of heart and mind that will create the foundation you need to walk out God's call to truth, purpose, and impact in your life. Again, I'm Dr. Lisa Dunne. Thank you so much again. Thank you so much for joining us today, and I look forward to seeing you in class.